Good afternoon. I'm Cindy Hall, President of the Women's Congressional Policy Institute, WCPI. Welcome to our virtual congressional briefing, Ending Period Poverty for Women and Girls. We hope today's discussion will help shed light on the concept of period poverty in the United States, its effect on our nation's women and girls, and their ability to go to school and reach their full potential. As most of you know, WCPI is a nonpartisan, nonprofit public policy organization whose mission is to bring together a community of bipartisan women policymakers and trusted partners to advance issues of importance to women, develop the next generation of women leaders, and foster a more effective and representative democracy. We work closely with the members and staff of the bipartisan Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues. I would like to thank our congressional briefing co-sponsors, the leadership of the Women's Caucus, Congresswoman Madeleine Dean and Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon, co-chairs, and Congresswomen Lucy McBath and Kat Kamak, vice chairs. Our special thanks to Procter Gamble and Always for their support for this briefing. We appreciate their commitment to alleviating period poverty for women and girls, both here and globally. Our special thanks to our speakers, Sophia Bush, Jennifer Davis, and Brittany Gray, each of whom will be introduced shortly. Unfortunately, Congresswoman Grace Meng had an unexpected conflict come up. She has pre-recorded remarks, which we are trying to bring to you during the event. If we do not succeed in that, they will be posted on our website following the event. We do thank her for championing this issue in Congress, and we know her efforts will continue. We welcome Congresswomen Lois Frankel and Lucille Roybal-Allard, who are attending today's briefing. And I'm very pleased next to introduce Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, Democratic co-chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus. Congresswoman Dean is serving her second term representing the 4th District of Pennsylvania. She serves on the Financial Services and Judiciary Committees. Congresswoman Dean is a strong advocate for girls' education and has been a champion in Congress supporting women and girls' healthcare needs. Congresswoman?
Thank you so much, Cindy. It is always good to be with you and to be with WCPI. We enjoy partnering with you. I know Lucy McBath, my friend and colleague and co-chair, vice chair, I guess, is always pleased to be with you. And also thank you to Sophia Bush, Jennifer Davis, Congresswoman Grace Meng for her leadership, Brittany Gray and Jennifer Davis. I think I said Jennifer twice. I'll lift you up twice, Jennifer. You're worthy of it. This is an important conversation, so I'm glad to be a part of it. As co-chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, composed of all of the women, members of the House of Representatives, it is important that we in a bipartisan way promote initiatives that benefit women and families. With certain issues, we have a long way to go, and we must work to ensure that women are supported in every way possible. Period poverty has been an issue that has impacted women for decades. One of the many reasons for period poverty is because menstrual products cannot be purchased with food stamps, Medicaid, or health insurance spending accounts. In the United States, 25 million women live in poverty, but food stamps fail to cover menstrual products. Something's wrong there. This leaves vulnerable populations such as students, low-income and homeless women and girls, transgender people, and those who are currently incarcerated to face period poverty. I learned more about this after reading Lynette Medley and her daughter. I read about Naya McClone, who began delivering free menstrual products door to door in my neighboring Philadelphia 3 years ago, at night out of respect for the privacy of the women and girls they were helping. Lynette and Naya inspire me, as does the work of my colleague and Congresswoman Grace Meng, who introduced the Menstrual Equality for All Act of 2021. I quickly co-sponsored this important legislation to make sure that incarcerated and homeless women have access to menstrual products. And it would also allow schools to use federal funds for period products. Legislation like that is an important step. It's in the right direction to address period poverty and to help women and girls access resources they need. No one should have to choose between food for their children or sanitary products. I thank my colleague, Grace Meng, for her work and all of the other advocates. I also thank our co-chairs, Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon and Kat Kamak, the representatives for the Republican portion of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus. It is always important for us to partner anytime we can to lift up issues that affect women and girls and families. And with that, Cindy, I will yield back.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And thank you for your commitment to ensuring access to adequate healthcare and educational opportunities for girls and women. I am pleased next to welcome Congresswoman Lucy McBath, Vice Chair of the Women's Caucus. Congresswoman McBath is serving her second term, representing the 6th District of Georgia. She serves on the Judiciary and Education and Labor Committees. Congresswoman McBath is a leader and strong advocate for legislation protecting and improving the lives of women and girls.
Thank you so very much, Cindy, and the wonderful women and staff of WCPI. Thank you so very much. I'm glad to be with you today. But thank you once again, WCPI, for hosting this briefing today. And thank you to our panelists, Sophia Bush and Jennifer Davis, Brittany Gray, and of course, my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Grace Meng, for your continued leadership in helping to eliminate the hurdles that women face to menstrual products. And it's so incredible to see this kind of work that's being done to eradicate the stigma surrounding periods and to combat the cost barrier that exists for far too many women in their attempts to purchase these necessary health products. Far too many women and girls lack the proper access to products that are a necessary part of just our basic biology. And whether it be because of rising prices or simply because the stigma and artificial shame that surrounds these products make it difficult for young women to access them. And we've got to do more to eliminate the barriers that women face to adequately access period health products. Period poverty is not just an issue of menstrual health and hygiene. When girls and women don't have access to the products that they need, it prevents them from being able to engage in just their daily activities. According to a report by Always, when girls don't have access to period products in school, they admit to feeling ashamed and far less confident than their peers. And they're less likely to be involved in extracurricular activities or simply just to be able to hang out with their friends. To eliminate the stigma surrounding periods, which is just normal and natural for women, we must encourage everyone to talk about it. There needs to be adequate education in schools on this issue, and parents must be willing to have just general common sense conversations with their children, with girls and yes, with boys about periods. Transparency and education will help us reduce the stigma on this incredibly common aspect of just human life. Together, we must work towards more understanding and a world where people are comfortable having conversations about period health, a world where girls are no longer left to feel shame for it. And this is just not a women's issue. As we see time and time again, when women are held back from fully participating in society, everyone is negatively impacted. Well, again, thank you to the Women's Congressional Policy Institute and our wonderful panelists today for hosting this event today. And thank you so much for your leadership on breaking the stigma surrounding menstruation and eliminating the barriers to access for period products. This could not be a more timely discussion and sorely needed as we continue to uplift and embrace and celebrate women all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We look forward to working with the caucus leadership and members to find bipartisan solutions to eliminate period poverty. And we really thank both Congresswoman McBath and Dean for joining us today and demonstrating your leadership on this issue and so many others. So thank you both. It is now my pleasure to welcome our first speaker, Sophia Bush, an actress, activist, entrepreneur, and global education access advocate. She is a member of the Directors Guild of America and has starred in various independent projects, shows, and movies. Sophia devotes her free time to bettering girls' education and the environment. She has inspired young people to join her in raising money for charity, built 3 primary schools in Guatemala and Laos, and now serves as a global ambassador for Glamour's The Girl Project. Her focus with the Girl Project, currently working in 96 countries, is to break down barriers that girls face to secondary school education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia Bush, and I am so honored to be here with you all today. I want to say thank you to the Women's Congressional Policy Institute and the Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues for having me. And I would also like to express my gratitude to the members of Congress, House and Senate congressional staff, as well as those working in federal and state government, the nonprofit sector, academia, and corporate and labor sectors for taking the time to be here today. I know you all have very busy schedules, and it is appreciated. I'm here today to talk to you about what I've learned as a proud partner working with Always. We are working on behalf of menstruating students everywhere. I first partnered with Always in September of 2019 to support their End Period Poverty campaign to help raise awareness and rally support to help keep our young people in school. The idea that so many students in the US, including here in my own city of Los Angeles, are having to sacrifice parts of their education because they don't have access to period products breaks my heart and frankly makes me angry. It's very easy for all of us to assume that period poverty is something that's happening somewhere else and to assume that we can't really do much about it. But that's not true. I learned from Always that nearly 1 in 5 girls in the United States have missed school because they don't have access to period products. I can assure you that whatever city or state you live in, this is a problem taking place in your own backyard. Understanding this, I knew that we needed to gather a collective. We needed to get creative on ways to educate our communities about this issue and also figure out how to help make a difference. So in September of 2019, we teamed up with local grassroots organizations, Period Heroes, and the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank to deliver millions of pads to schools to help keep young people focused on their education and extracurricular activities without any more added stress that could be caused by lack of access to period products. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that I would not be here today speaking before all of you as a woman with a career in entertainment media and a long-standing record of philanthropic action and political activism were it not for the incredible education that I was privileged enough to pursue. My passion for political science, the nuance of literature, the ever-changing and evolving progress we are making as a society toward a more equitable world, those are all things that I discovered in the pages of books and seated in classrooms and both in lecture halls and office hours learning from my favorite college professors. I owe my drive and ability to listen and understanding of the world around me to each educator who showed me the pathways that could be open in front of me. Each teacher who made it possible for me to believe that one day I could be here with you. Knowing that I can trace all that's led me here today to the education that shaped me, I can't fathom even a single student having these pathways closed to them, let alone because their bodies are simply doing what they're biologically designed to do. The idea that students, largely women and girls, could miss out on their potential because of menstruation and that the world would then miss out on the innovations that might come from their brilliance, that simply cannot be allowed to happen. That's why I'm proud to be here working with Always Again, this time at a national congressional level, to help spark the change needed to ensure that every young person who menstruates has access to the products and the confidence that they need to reach their fullest potential. We need to make sure that we stop treating periods like a taboo subject. Each of us in this room and here on Zoom is here after all, because someone had their period. Perhaps we should treat menstruation with that life-giving reverence rather than like some paper bag bottom shelf shameful topic. Joining forces with Always means we are starting a conversation to do just that. This is important to me because, like me, Always believes in eradicating taboos and that a lack of access to period products should not stand in the way of anyone's education. As a longtime education access advocate, it is essential for me to use my voice to bring awareness to this issue, to get involved in their mission, and to speak to you all about the reality that this is truly our mission together. I promise you I will continue fighting against period poverty until every young person has free access to the products they need in order to excel in school. Without access to period products, their confidence, dignity, and education are put at risk. That's a fact. So it is imperative that we begin a cross-sector collaboration to drive long-term systemic solutions. Our goal should be that young people in schools are provided access to free period products, safe and private bathrooms, and a space free of period stigma. What's the stigma for anyway? Come on. It's simple. We can't tackle a problem if we don't know that it exists. I believe that if we continue engaging public and private parties at large in the reality of this issue, we will be able to raise awareness of it, and we will drive positive change for young people across our country. Please join us. To get involved, I encourage all of you listening to support your local organization's donation drives as often as you possibly can. Urge your local representatives to fight for this proposed legislation. And if nothing else, please continue sharing your period stories and discuss this very natural part of life so that we can eradicate the misinformation, shame, and embarrassment for all those who menstruate. Please head to always.com to read more of the staggering facts about period poverty and to learn more ways that you can support this mission. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for your inspiring remarks. We appreciate your advocacy and efforts to raise awareness of this issue for so many girls and how we can better support girls' education. I am pleased to introduce our next speaker and moderator for the following speaker, Jennifer Davis, President for Feminine Care at Procter Gamble, P&G. Jennifer leads P&G's global feminine care business, serving women and girls in over 125 countries. She manages a portfolio of over $4 billion in annual sales and works to increase global awareness of women's personal care issues and access of period products to girls in need, focusing on girls who are missing school. Jennifer?
I want to start by thanking the Women's Congressional Policy Institute, Cindy Hall and her team, and Congresswomen Madeleine Dean, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, Lucy McBath, and Kat Kamek for having me today. Despite increasing attention and advocacy, menstruation remains a taboo topic all around the world and is often surrounded by embarrassment and shame. Period stigma prevents so many from receiving the support and products they need to manage their periods safely, hygienically, and with confidence. Research indicates that more than half of girls experience a sharp drop in confidence during puberty, and many of them never get it back. Their first period often marks the lowest point of confidence in the teen years. And one of the reasons is this lack of period education. Knowledge about puberty and periods varies greatly around the world. The numbers, even in the US, are shocking. And often when I share US statistics, people assume I must be talking about another part of the world. But right here in our country, 1 in 4 young people don't know why some people get periods or how to manage them. and 2 in 5 don't feel prepared for their first period. The statistics are alarming, and that's why providing menstrual education is so important. For over 35 years, Always has had a free puberty and confidence education program. It now reaches more than 15 million young people, their parents, and teachers globally. But the drop in confidence at puberty is even more pronounced for millions who miss school and activities because they don't have access to period products. It starts a vicious cycle that in some cases tragically ends in dropping out of school. The issue is known as period poverty, and even the most economically developed countries have some level of it. In the US, as Sophia mentioned earlier, nearly 1 in 5 girls have missed school because of a lack of access to period products, and almost half of them said missing school negatively impacts their performance. Additionally, 3 out of 5 try to hide the issue from the people around them. More recently, Always has learned that since the pandemic, nearly 1 in 4 women are worried about their ongoing ability to afford period products, rising to nearly 1 in 3 among parents. And the impacts of COVID-19, such as lost income and savings, rising commodity costs, and food and housing insecurity have only exacerbated the issue of period poverty. The cycle is difficult to break. Not only is poverty systemic, but taboo and shame can prevent those affected from ever voicing their needs. And this prevents potential solutions from being discussed and implemented. And it's why we need multifaceted solutions that tackle stigma, provide period education, and enable access to period products. Enabling access can be done in a few ways, and one is through donations. At Always, we work with partners such as Feeding America and other nonprofit organizations to provide donations to those in need. And as we've done so, we continue to learn about the magnitude and significance of the issue and try to do our part to help. We've donated more than 30 million period products in the US alone since the start of the pandemic. Yet we cannot donate our way out of the problem. The only way to solve period poverty is to drive more systemic change, which requires a cross-sector collaboration. Structural interventions such as making period products freely available in schools, just like toilet paper, would be a huge step forward, and several US states are already doing this. We've seen the systemic approach taken in places like the UK and New Zealand. In fact, we activated our end period poverty work in the UK in the same way that we did in the US, by raising awareness of the issue and rallying society to help. Almost 2 years later, after sparking a significant movement of people, influencers, and activists, the government announced in January 2020 that it would provide free period products in schools. This was a significant milestone and a catalyst for the UK government task force that was chaired by the Minister for Women and Equalities alongside P&G and Plan International. The task force was a cross-sector collaboration that tackled not just the period poverty issues in the country, but also broader period issues like stigma and lack of education. It's a diverse group of organizations and individuals committed to making a meaningful difference. Given our experience and commitment, P&G and Always would love to see and support a similar approach in the US. We're so encouraged by Congresswoman Meng's request to the Biden administration for the first ever National Menstrual Equity Task Force under the White House Gender Policy Council. This task force could play a critical role in finding ways to solve period poverty, to improve period and puberty education, and to destigmatize periods in our country. It could have a long-lasting impact on the future and well-being of our women, girls, and communities. At P&G and Always, we believe that no one should be kept from realizing their full potential because they menstruate. And as Menstrual Hygiene Day approaches on May 28th, it's a great reminder that we need to work together to continue to address the multiple and interconnected challenges that so many continue to face because of their periods. Speaking of working together, I am thrilled to introduce you to our next guest, Brittany Gray, founder of Girls Health Period based in Cincinnati, who is on a mission to eliminate girls' absenteeism in school due to their menstrual cycle. Hello, Brittany.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you to WCPI. Always, Jen, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so thankful to be at this platform to express all the needs and all just everything that we need to talk about. So I'm excited for today.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here today and to continue the conversation that we've been having over the last couple of years. I wanted to start by really asking you to share a little bit about why you became so interested in the concept of period poverty. What was it that really motivated you to get involved in this work, Brittany?
So to be honest, my previous career was an intervention specialist in the CPS system, and I just had a menstrual closet or a hygiene closet, and I noticed that a lot of the menstrual products would go quickly. And so as I transitioned to hairstyling, that's one of my primary consumers or clients were teachers still. So I wanted to make sure I provided something to go back to being a volunteer still in the education sector. And one of my clients just said, hey, Bree, you know, this is what we need. I'm like, okay. So I provided some menstrual products, but it started from one school and then it shot to 9 schools within 3 weeks. And then every time I would come back to a school, they just told me of different stories of children in need. And some of my youngest menstruators being of 8 years old and 9 years old in age. And it just was the light bulb just like blink. And so with that said, I just knew then I needed to research more and understand what are the needs, especially in the Cincinnati area, of our students and especially our menstruating students. And with the lack of resources and the things that our students were using to provide themselves some type of menstrual product, it's just disheartening. And so I just knew then I needed to put all the effort I could, and knowing the type of clientele that I had, to get everybody on board to have the community stand behind this mission of ending period poverty.
Yeah. So was your experience, Brittany, in the schools that helped you really see the impact that a lack of period products was having on girls? And you continued to work with girls through your business and realized how much it was a need. Now, you started this a couple of years ago. You knew there was a need. What have you learned during that time about the issue of period poverty?
I've learned with the lack, being in period poverty and lack of resources, that's a umbrella like no other. So being really focused and understanding not just with the access to products, but the education behind it. So no matter of your social economic level in life, with their families, it really is just showing and telling when you don't have the education on what to do with this product. So even the education behind it, it's very little. There's no certified education, especially in Ohio, that talks just solely on puberty. We always align it with education, sex education, and therefore that's when we get into a conservative or liberal conversation. But we need to really hone in into menstrual education for our menstruating bodies, our girls and our boys, understanding how the importance is in it. So understanding period poverty as a whole for our students, I noticed the lack of education and the lack of comfortability in our school systems. I mean, there's some resource coordinators that are of the male identifying bodies that also were very uncomfortable not even to touch a pad. So we need to have a community in the education system that is very open to this already taboo conversation that shouldn't be. So just the communities in general, we definitely need to heighten and highlight menstrual education, how big that is, and releasing that whole stigma, especially for our students. So.
Yeah, we find that education that creates awareness, that just normalizes something that's normal, right, is so key for us to even be able to talk about the fact then that there are some menstruators that don't have access to product, right? It's like the stigma surrounding the situation prevents us from even acknowledging that it exists, right?
Yeah.
This is such an important part. And so I think the focus on education, as we've said, it's just critical to unlocking the solutions, right? Otherwise, people are suffering in shame. And the knock-on effects create this vicious cycle.
Right. I think we also need to understand, because of how family dynamics are changing over the years, especially, children are coming from spaces that either don't have parents or adopted, or still part of the foster care system, or being raised by grandparents. And so we're talking about generational gaps, certain myths, certain cultural or even religious backgrounds that, the conversation is either forbidden or never been heard of. So actually having some person in our guide, as a guide in our communities, that is already linked to that cultural or that religion background will help us, expand our conversation to end period poverty, but also educating our students, educating their communities, and educating the whole family source. So even in certain backgrounds of the family backgrounds, if the male is the one that is providing product, then we need to make sure that we are speaking to that male in that household to understand what the awareness is for menstrual awareness, and what is the proper products to have in the household to make sure their children have a clean, confident, and comfortable experience in their menstruation cycle.
Yeah, we have to educate the entire ecosystem that's going to surround the menstruator, so that everyone can be part of the solution.
Very, very much so.
We're talking today about cross-sector solutions, and tell me a little bit about the policy help that you think is needed from the public sector.
I really feel as though with the public sector and the policy change makers, we really need to dive in education and the certification of education. Having menstrual education as a whole is one step closer to sex education and opening a whole gamut of things. But as we're speaking of menstrual education, we need to make sure that it's part of staff, also administration, and our students as a whole. I continue to say as an education sector because we stop at a teen level or secondary education, but as we're seeing, as the years have gone by, elementary needs that information as well, and going across to college level and also into the workplace. That's a part of an inclusive environment in general. So education in its as an entirety, that is very important. And I also believe in the public sector going into the conversation of having a proper products for our students and those that are a part of the WIC program or food stamps, providing those menstrual products, quality menstrual products is necessary because, as a student, if name brand things, I always knew as a young girl, even starting my menstrual cycle, I knew this was going to take care of me in this cycle. And I want to make sure that the students that we provide to, they also feel that they are going to be taken care of. So those two areas of education and having quality and sustainable products for our students are very important to acknowledge, that we need all resources to be a part of that policy change.
Yeah, definitely. You're talking about the structural interventions, right, that are required to sort of break this vicious cycle. Tell me, Brittany, because you're working in your community and you have a lot of interface with menstruators, their families. Tell us a little bit about the impact that period poverty has in these young people's lives, and then the work that your organization does. What impact does it have on them?
Okay, so in the Cincinnati level, in the very beginning, you start to see the survival-like tactics that students use. So some students were plugging themselves with one-ply paper towels. We also have students using t-shirts or socks or towels in general, or staying home for weeks on end. And so those are the things that are not reported. That's not something that you can get a ratio or a statistic about. You have to get a close connection and involvement in the school system and the families to understand that drastic way of survival. And so when Girls Health Period comes in, I call it like a guerrilla army of how I come into the school, and I have pads. I'm known as the pad lady. And I try to talk about my trinity of people that I need to speak to. And I need to speak to the principal, the nurse, and the resource coordinator. And that conversation needs to be emailed throughout the school system to the other teachers so that they know that the resources is there. Normally, we just drop off product. Other organization might drop off product, and that's it. But we need to make sure we have a partnership. It's about collaboration and the communication between us all. This it takes just these small steps of being upfront, being present, so they know that I'm always watching and I'm always going to be here for my students. Because also in this time period, with Girls Health Period as being an advocate for these students, we also know that we are the voice of these students. And because of period poverty and the lack of confidence in being clean or comfortable in your menstrual cycle, some of these voices of children have become silent, and silent in the trust of a system that is supposed to be here to be instilled for them. And most of the time they are either told, no, we do not have it, it's not for you, this is only what you can have. With Girls Health Period, we provide whatever is necessary. And I'm very thankful for the partnership with P&G and Always that have provided an overwhelming amount of donations to us so we can provide openly to all our students and our families to make sure that they did not have to worry about it. Because in some families, you have more than one menstruator, and sometimes whoever has to go to work or whoever has to go to school, that's the oldest, that is the one that is going to school with the proper menstrual products, but the others have to stay behind. So we want to provide as whatever the family needs and make sure that in the workspace, in the education sector, all of menstruators can have menstrual products.
We don't want anyone left behind, right? Because they
No.
menstruate. What are some of the challenges you've faced at a local level in doing this work? I know we've talked a little bit about the incredible support you feel from the community in doing your work, but I know it's not always easy, right? What are some of the challenges that you face, Brittany?
I think it's operational barriers in the sense of sometimes people can get so lost in the woods. I think it's the corporate can be it can be too many steps in between, and it can just be very simple. And so it's always logistics, I would believe. And then also providing a good track record, because we want to make sure that the student that we provided for at age 9 and 10, we do want to link them to make sure that we are seeing that at their graduation level at 18 years of age, that we see the progress in their lives. But on reality, most people don't speak about this. And so that's why it's a constant conversation, and it can be a challenge, but I will not take that as a challenge to continue to talk. I mean, that is the smallest thing that you can do, is just open up and say, how are you doing? Like just the smallest thing. So those challenges within the school sector, that's one thing. But when you start to add administrators and understanding the staff and different beliefs and things of that nature, what we are here for, we're here for the students. So any bias or anything that you had before, you check that at the door. And so in this property, however we need to do, I just can come in at a staff meeting, have a 5-minute conversation with you, provide your products for all your teachers, because some people can't go straight to the nurse's room or all the time. But at least if we can't get in the bathroom, your teacher can have this, a trusted individual. And also just again, the stigma is probably the biggest umbrella, pink elephant in the room,
Yeah.
that is the challenge of a lifetime. And so
Yep.
that's why it doesn't matter in what conversation or group setting, I'm going to talk about a period. So the shoulders can relax, you can actually exhale, and it's okay. It's a natural thing. And we're glad to have it so our bodies can function normally. So
Yep.
I would say
Practice saying the words with me. It's not that hard, right? And, we
that.
joke a little bit, but we, because we're active in this space, we're well aware of the statistics. We know the issues. We know what's required. But we constantly find that people are not aware, right, of this issue. What can we do besides events like this to really raise the awareness and the understanding of people broadly in our communities and in this country to know that this is an issue we all need to come together to solve?
I think we get comfortable in our circles. And so branching out of our circles, whether that is personal or work communities, like in Cincinnati, we have 52 to 64 neighborhoods in Cincinnati. And some people just stay in that one neighborhood all their life, and that is it. And I always suggest going to the next neighborhood and finding, it's too many Facebook groups, Instagram groups now, and social media, that you can't find a group of plant lovers that you can talk about menstruation or Afrocentric furniture. You can start talking about menstruation and providing at that circle just some paths like, hey, if anybody needs menstrual products, here you go. And here's an organization that's doing it, Girls Health Period plug all the time. And then you can go from there. I think we just think so, making making it such a big thing, like, oh my God, this is, when you could be doing this every moment. You are the advocate. It takes one share is one care. So if you see, just providing to your local coffee stations. We have a lot of coffee houses in Cincinnati that we have drop-off centers as Girls Health Period, that at any time you can buy coffee and drop in some pads, but you can also go into the restroom and see Girls Health Period has free menstrual products for you. And that's for anybody of the community. That also gets our awareness out, but it also is aware, like, oh my gosh, this is one simple thing that I can provide. So take that into as in paying it forward and going to your workplace and set a basket in the bathroom. Going
Yeah.
to your church, set a basket in the bathroom, and then having a committee to have this conversation. And remember, it is all sectors of the family and the community. So just don't leave our males out. Get them in, get our
Yeah.
brothers, our uncles, our fathers, our grandfathers, for some, to be a part of this conversation as well. So it starts as your community, looking your background, your backyard, because it's somebody next door to you that may need products or just needing a lending ear about their menstrual cycle, that can also provide, that you can provide that resource for them.
Yeah, I love that call to action, Brittany. Really work on your circle of influence and
Mhm.
realize you can probably extend the size of that circle if you're just maybe thoughtful about who is it I engage with on a daily basis, but who could I also engage with to really make this part of the conversation. Hey, there's two questions I want to ask you in the 5 minutes we have left. The first one is, tell me a little bit about how you've had to innovate due to some of the experiences from COVID-19 and how it impacted your work and the need, frankly, in Cincinnati this last year.
Right. So last year, normally we provide products between 300 menstrual products up to 1,500 menstrual products to each school, depending on their population. And I provided a large donation to a lot of schools right before COVID hit. And then the schools were closed. And in Cincinnati, they just reopened, I believe, in March of 2021. So imagine that in that sense. But with the Girls Health Period, because we didn't understand the whole COVID and pandemic situation in the very beginning, and being contactless, that was the next thing on our list. So how can we get to our communities? We started shipping our products, and you got 2 packages of products with underwear and some type of sanitation wipe, and our program information of things that you need to know about your period. And you can send it any family, anywhere. We had such an influx in our neighboring schools from our Cincinnati location, but also even to other states. And so we started to have that shipment program and we got hit immediately. So I'm glad in that time where before the vaccine was here for us, basically we were able to ship our product. And I still feel in this time with students that still didn't have internet service, still didn't have the proper equipment for their educational needs. So if they can't hear me or see me on Instagram, how are they going to know? So we went into our local areas that I know have an influx of lower income and a lot of different cultural backgrounds. And I just popped my trunk with products and whoever needs them. So that's why in certain communities you will hear like them yell, "It's the pad lady." And so people start coming in droves to the trunk of my car. So we had to, do that 180 and however we can. And again, it's simple. How can we get the product to our communities and not having an excuse about it? I like sometimes, I mean, we don't have a truck right now. So I had to get in my Honda and get to where we need to go to. And then as we are also recognizing education wasn't in the classroom, but activities started immediately in the summer of last year. So we also are linking and partnering with our AAU basketball teams and our athletics sports in the high school sectors, especially, and providing for them and dance teams in the local area of Cincinnati, making sure that they have the proper equipment. So that's how we had to change on the fly. A period doesn't stop, pandemic or not.
That's right. I mean, I love the innovative way you've overcome the challenges. And as you've overcome these challenges to still get the work done, you find the need even goes beyond attending school. Education is foundational, right? To our menstruators able to have the impact in the world we need them to do. Particularly, we've talked as well about how extracurricular activities like athletics and other things are so important for building girls' confidence, right, through puberty. But if she doesn't have access to products, she won't be able to participate in those either. So I love the way you're expanding this beyond. We know all these things are so important for our girls to have an impact on the communities that we need them to have. So Brittany, big thank you for all of your work. We love partnering with you. You really inspire us. And I know you're inspiring a lot of people here in Cincinnati, and I'm sure who are listening today. Thank you again so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. This is definitely elevated girls' health period. As we move forward, I cannot wait for you all to hear our new journeys and our new things that we're going to have coming up this year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to both Jennifer and Brittany. What an incredible discussion between the two of you. So inspiring, so informative. Obviously, the need to destigmatize the issue being such a primary message here. The importance of menstrual education for not just girls, but also boys. The involvement of everyone in this issue and the many steps, big and small, that we can all contribute to this issue. And just really, I found this an incredible, valuable way to spend time today. And we really thank both of you for your important work. So thank you. So thank you, of course, again, to each of our speakers for sharing their experiences and expertise, and for giving policymakers so much to consider today. We appreciated hearing your perspectives and firsthand knowledge of how women and girls continue to be affected by period poverty in the United States, including its ability to impact girls in school, and as Brittany was talking about, girls in sports, so many activities that are critical to fulfilling the potential for all girls. And we hope today's briefing has helped to create a greater awareness of this issue and will initiate further policy discussions at every level. As noted previously, this conversation was recorded and it should be available tomorrow at our website at wcpinst.org. And that will include Congresswoman Grace Meng's video too. And in a few minutes, you will receive an email asking you to fill out a survey about today's discussion. We hope you will take a few minutes to do so. It helps us plan for future programming, and we really do appreciate your observations. Our thanks again to the Bipartisan Women's Caucus leadership, both members and staff, and Procter Gamble and Always for their support for this briefing. And finally, my thanks to Cynthia Ramos, Cheryl Williams, and Julia O'Connor for their work to make this briefing possible. And did either of the congresswomen that may still be on this call, I see Congresswoman Lucy McBath, did you want to say anything before we close out?
Well, I just want to thank Jennifer and Brittany. This was such an insightful conversation. I mean, I have to be honest with you. You know, when you talk about policies that really change people's lives, this is something I never even considered. And I'm venturing to say that most people don't even have any idea of the magnitude of the problem for our young girls and women, especially in the areas that have been underserved in those communities. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I cannot tell you, it really makes a difference. And sometimes it's the small things like this that make such a difference for women to feel empowered. And that's exactly what we need to do. And Brittany and Jennifer, what you're doing is empowering women to stand up and take their place. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot today, and just let us know how we can continue to serve your interests and serve the platform to make sure that all women and young women have access to what they just absolutely deserve for being human.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
I think that's the perfect way to end. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Brittany, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just was saying thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman McBath, excuse me. I'm truly excited. This has been an enlightening moment, and definitely a push for Girls Health Period. We are a very young organization, but we have expanded very quickly in the last 2 years. And knowing the life expectancy for most organizations of mine is 3 to 5 years, we have just hit the landmark. And I definitely am excited for the new innovations that we have to come. And it takes platforms like these for us to be pushed forward. So I'm very thankful and honored to be here with you all today.
Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a great program, and we so appreciate all that you're doing, and we look forward to working with you moving forward. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Congresswoman Grace Meng. It's a pleasure to be with you all virtually, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the live event. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the team at the Women's Congressional Policy Institute for hosting today's briefing. To my colleagues from the Women's Caucus, Sophia Bush, Brittany Gray, and Jennifer Davis, thank you for taking the time today to share your wisdom and insights on how we can more effectively combat period poverty. The issue of menstrual equity is near and dear to my heart. Growing up, I never thought about period poverty, as I was always fortunate enough to be able to afford these products. But I learned about the issue when a teenage girl in my district wrote to me about how homeless women did not have access to menstrual products. My constituent story opened my eyes to the difficulty millions of people face in trying to afford necessary menstrual products. That's why I made it a priority to ensure income is not a barrier to accessing these products. Since then, I fought to normalize these conversations in the halls of Congress by testifying in committee hearings and holding congressional forums on menstrual equity. I'm also using every opportunity to make sure menstrual equity is addressed in our federal spending bills. Lack of access to menstrual products can hinder a person's day-to-day life, making it difficult to attend school, secure job interviews, and pursue opportunities that could lead to economic advancement. Period products are still treated like luxury items and not necessities in 30 states who have additional sales tax on menstrual products like tampons, pads, cups, and more. The government has the ability to change that. We have the power to ensure that the very basic healthcare right of people who menstruate is met. Over the last few years, our country has actually come a long way on this issue. Last year, my bill that allows menstrual products to be purchased with money from health savings accounts and flexible spending accounts was included in the CARES Act. I've long advocated for this change in my Menstrual Equity for All Act, and I was so pleased to see that part passed into law. President Biden's creation of the White House Gender Policy Council and institute policy change that combats period poverty. However, we must face the taboo nature of this topic. Period talk is still considered just bathroom talk and is meant to be discussed in whispers. We need to normalize the conversation around menstruation and period poverty because the lack of conversation and education about this issue hurts our ability to pass legislation that addresses menstrual equity. We also have to overcome the gender and racial inequities that are intertwined with the issue of period poverty. People of color still disproportionately hold lower wage jobs, and income disparity is greater than ever before. Women still don't even have guaranteed equal rights under the Constitution. All these are deeply ingrained societal factors in the ongoing neglect of the very basic human needs of people who menstruate. But this cannot be the end of the story. That's why I'm committed to fighting for the dignity and human right of people who menstruate. Later this week, on May 28th, I'll be reintroducing my Menstrual Equity for All Act, which is a whole-of-government approach to eliminate period poverty once and for all. Thanks to the work of people like Brittany out in the community and the increased research and data that we have showing the extent of period poverty, we have an exciting opportunity to comprehensively address this issue. No student should have to choose between their dignity or their education. No family should have to choose between buying groceries or tampons. And just because someone is incarcerated, their dignity and self-respect should not be compromised over these products. Everyone should and must care about menstrual equity. Thank you, and I hope you all continue to be safe and well.